Welcome to another episode of Ripping On. We have a guest host, LSF, and let's jump right into it.
No, well, so I'm going to ask you the question, which came up. Yeah, this question came up. I might have mentioned it before.
Okay.
So yeah, in a well-known server, um, it was the scenario is we now have cars which drive themselves, AI, um, and there is going to be an inevitable, unavoidable accident, and you get hurt or even killed
Mm-hmm.
by the car, which is driven by the AI. Now,
Mm-hmm.
everything would be exactly the same if it was a human.
Mm-hmm.
Which would you rather be run over by?
We definitely had this discussion, and a matter of fact, I've even asked a couple other people this question because I found it interesting. It was a very interesting question. I would choose the AI, and actually, you want to hear the funny thing? Majority of the people who I asked this question to afterwards all chose the human over the AI.
Okay, why did you choose the AI?
You already know my answer because it's pointless to put a human through the idiotic scenario of killing me and knowing they killed someone.
But they might think they killed you anyway because they bought AI and they worked on the assumption it was going to do better. Because they're not going to know that there was the other outcome, which is exactly the same if they were driving. All they're going to know is that their car AI killed you, they're alive.
That isn't the
So
question. The question is if huh?
I was going to say they're going to carry guilt potentially.
Who is?
The people who survive in the car that's AI.
Uh, huh? Wait, you changed the question. You asked me a scenario where it's either I choose between an individual driving the car or an AI driving the car.
Yes. So your reason for choosing AI was what again? Sorry.
Simply not to put someone through the idea of killing me.
Yes. So that's about that person's emotions.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I would have thought the bad star answer is I don't care either way.
Mm, Technically, it would be that, but at the same time, there is some kind of decency most people would have to choose when they take having the AI kill them versus having a human doing, you know?
So this is imagine you are now in the car, which was the AI car that killed me. I'm a pedestrian.
Uh-huh.
Um, what would your assessment be of how the accident went down? Would you be looking at it in any other way?
If I was an individual in the AI controlled car,
Yeah.
would I view the accident differently? Is that what you're asking?
Well, would you view the assessment of the AI's decision making? How would you look at that?
I would probably assume that it took the best decision possible, which was probably ending the individual's life versus whatever the other scenarios are. And now, if it decided to kill me, let's say randomly, then I would have an issue with that. But other than that, I would assume it made the best choice for whatever the
Yeah,
scenario is.
I'm about to find the cure for COVID.
Huh?
However, in one of the other cars, there were three children and a fat man. And the AI, well, does that not? Do you not consider how the AI works out who to what the minimum damage to cause might be?
I'm pretty sure it just assesses three versus one, or likelihood of death versus totality of death.
Now, an AI, I don't think an AI it can make an assessment possibly of harm, but as goes death, the AI just can't know either way whether death is going to actually be a thing or not.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you can program that into an AI simply by saying at set velocity, at set impact, blah blah blah. Since it's already assessing distance, speed, and all this kind of shit, if you set those parameters inside of it and it knows that there's going to be an accident, let not say it knows what's going to be it's going to be an accident, just knowing the total of how many lives are in the balance, it can make the assessment of which is better, which one is, the best outcome kind of thing,
So you would kill me over a car full of Republicans?
I think the AI would, yeah, sure. I don't think the AI is going to magically know whose party you belong to.
It's an AI, of course it will. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, but it seems that your answer is you would rather be killed by the AI, considering that other humans may have considerations of them being to blame.
Yeah.
But when I throw in the considerations that an AI could possibly make, you can negate them, yeah. Which is what MIT was trying to do with that game. What's it called? The moral decision thing. I'll find the link for you. Yeah, that's what they were trying to establish, is the set of rules that you would actually give to an AI regards an accident, and how the decisions of the AI would be implemented, which seems like more like machine learning. I'm not entirely sure, but it would seem like that more than AI.
I mean, you can program it in simply by assessing the amount of people and then the situation and then the least, I guess, the least harm possible. That can be assessed too. Let's say, for example, let's say the car is driving at 80. Someone jumps out into the road. The computer would automatically assess obstruction if it has no time or there's enough distance between them. It can decide to swerve, right? We can put that, we can see that being programmable, right? It's going to swerve, it's going to dodge, stop, all this kind of stuff, right? Now,
Yeah.
in that same scenario, you can program in, let's see, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's going to assess like the vehicle, like if it's going to be able to tell how many people inside of a vehicle via the cameras and all that kind of shit. That would be complicated. But let's say a truck is coming, right, at it, and it has passengers. Let's say 3 passengers, and a truck is coming at it. It's going to say swerving is not an option because the 3 versus the 1, then the 1 is worth the kill versus the 3. And then if it's assessed, and let's say even in a scenario like that, depending on the speed and all that kind of shit, then it can actually assess speed, impact, likelihood of death or likelihood of damage via the vehicle and all that kind of stuff, right? Because we already know at certain velocities how much damage a car is going to take and all that kind of stuff, the structural damage taken by a vehicle from an impact and all that kind of shit. So it can assess that too by all the information we've gathered throughout time. Well, throughout vehicle assessment and all that kind of shit, right? So it would be that simple. Like, it isn't that complicated to do. I would, okay, I'm saying it's not complicated to do, but but I'm sure it might be complicated. But people who know this information would probably be able to just program that into the computer. As for the speed and the calculation required in that time frame of, let's say, like 3 seconds, that I don't know. I don't know if the computer is going to be able to assess all that information within that time frame. That's the only thing that's different between the computer and what do you call it, computer and a human. We can assess situations really quickly, and I'm assuming a computer can, but depending on all the variables that you can program in, I don't know if it can go through all those processes in a millisecond, or whatever time it requires.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that either. But yeah, run the person who jumps out in front over and save everyone else. So let's go forward. So the scenario is the accident's going to happen, and neither of us are going to die, but somebody is. So young person or child? Sorry, child, old person or child?
Yet again, the computer would have to be able to assess the
No, use not.
individual. Okay, so let's say just if necessary, it will go via height, right? We can say you can program in the height uh the height range of a 16-year-old, 12-year-old, 8-year-old, a 30-year-old, and all that kind of shit. At a certain height, we can say like we can technically say that's an adult, even though we have children who
Ah,
might be taller than
so
the
you might
average,
have
right?
chondroplasia, you might have, which is dwarfism. So what happens then?
It would still assess the same thing, even if it's a dwarf or whatever. It would assess it as a child, let's say, right? Unless the computer is capable of doing like extremely fast facial recognition and database searching for that individual to assess their age and whatever they are, unless it's capable of doing that, then it's going to have to go with the bare basics of understanding certain height range, certain age range, and then you would have to compare that to the next individual. And then you can say, all right, the likelihood of wanting to kill a child is probably 0 versus the sacrifice of an adult, probably, I don't know, 90% or whatever, you know?
But so short serial killers, they get saved.
LSF. You're trying to change the shit to a bunch of stupid shit. It doesn't work. You cannot put all that inside of a computer and expect it to say, yes, it knows this person is a killer, a midget killer. Oh, I don't know.
Say, you put it inside the computer.
You did. You said a serial killer who's a short person.
If I can return the honourable gentleman to the actual question I asked.
Oh, what's the question?
Yeah. So, well, okay. So the scenario is that the same thing is going to happen. There's going to be an accident. So there are two people. So Bad Star Black. Do you save the young person or the old person?
Do you save the old person or the young person? Well, yeah, you save the young person.
Okay. Do you save the able-bodied person or the disabled person?
What?
Do you save an able-bodied person or a disabled person?
That would probably come down to range and likelihood of survival. Because I can tell you, I'm pretty sure no one's going to program in, do you save us this? Look, the able-bodied person, the computer might say, I'm just going with how, if I was the computer AI, I would be like, okay, an able-bodied person is going to be much more likely to jump out of the way and survive the impact, depending on how the speed and stuff like that. Able-bodied person is going to take the impact full on because they are unable to maneuver out of the way properly. So you would have to go with that assessment. Like, somebody who's capable of moving is most likely going to have to try and move out of the way and would have to take they would take less of the force depending on that. So okay. Yeah, you can go with those parameters.
Okay. A black crip in possession of a firearm or a nice white Christian man.
A what? A crypt? Are you talking about like a gang?
A crip. The Crips. They're a gang, Bad Star, in a place called Los Angeles.
Okay, so, whatever. Okay.
So black man who looks like gang member carrying gun or white Christian man unarmed.
If anyone were to program that into a goddamn AI, then they should be fucking beaten to a pulp, and the AI should be fucking removed from the system.
Agreed. God's already done this.
Huh?
I said I agree with you. They should be wiped out of the system, but God's already done this with the AI.
Either way, it doesn't matter. In a scenario like that, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that was my attempt at being absurd.
Okay. What else do you got?
Well, you're still deferring these things to the AI, and so what you're really saying is, this is my decision, but I'm going to pretend it's the AI making the decision.
I don't okay, wait. Are you saying I'm the one involved in all these accidents? Or if it's the AI that we're talking about?
The choice, if it was yours, was yeah.
Then why didn't you say my choice? I went on the understanding of programming a goddamn AI to make the assessments required to choose between life or death for an individual.
Oh, well, my AI would probably have given you a better explanation beforehand, so my apologies. Now, can we talk about responsibility?
Sure. What do you want to
Okay,
talk?
so when you get into a motor vehicle,
Hmm.
what are you responsible for?
My safety and others.
Agreed.
Uh-huh.
So where does your responsibility lie in with an AI-controlled motor vehicle? Is it still your safety and others?
Well, I would pretty much assume that the AI would have to say the safety of others. There wouldn't be a self-preservation when it comes to the AI.
Okay, so in a court case after an accident, all of the information from all of the AIs is gathered.
Hmm.
Uh, it seems your AI has made a huge mistake. um,
So there's an error in the programming. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, are you responsible? Do you feel responsible?
Okay, LSF. You're giving me. How am I supposed to feel responsible? I don't understand.
Well, um,
Am I the programmer? Am I in the vehicle when this thing happens? Am I the one
yes,
who's
well,
supposed to be?
actually, yeah, you've started to give the list of negations as to what this thing can and can't do. So, having done all of your negations, you're now in court, and the people are going, "Hold on a second, bad star, you left this in or didn't take that out."
So
This is now,
I have
yeah,
programmed
so,
this thing.
yeah, right. So now what's how do you feel now?
So okay, okay,
Or
okay.
what's your answer? Do you have an answer to these
Yeah, I'm
people?
sure I can come up with an answer. Give me a moment here because I need to assess the information that you're giving me. So
Okay,
I'm the programmer, and my car has a defect, or the programming has a defect, and it causes accidents, right?
right. No, you're the programmer. There's an accident involving, say, the three cars, and it comes to a court case.
Uh huh.
All of the information is taken from the AIs,
Uh
and
huh.
it's established how the decision was made to kill the individual on the side of the road,
Uh
or
huh.
that was the minimum harm.
Uh huh.
When you're in court, they go, well, you explained how you made this computer make these decisions with your set of criteria, which you laid out earlier in the conversation,
Uh huh.
and they now go, you're responsible.
Then they would be idiots to try and blame that on the programmer. So look, when it comes to assessing information like that, you simply put, the mere fact that society is willing to make fucking self-driving cars already means that the programmer is not at fault unless there is literally an error in the system that shows that the thing was malfunctioning. Then it would be the fault of the programmer, creator, whatever, right? But if this thing is working the way it's supposed to, and it's literally assessing the information in the situation and it's making the best decision possible, the mere fact that it's doing that, that means it's doing what it was programmed to do. And the mere fact that society has chosen to create this thing and allow this thing to be on the road means that society has accepted that if in situations where it comes to accidents, society has chosen that it would be acceptable for these things to happen. Simply put, unless there's an error, then there is no fault to be had in the programming or the design or whatever of the car. Because society accepted this, and society kind of gets the last say in it. So once that's done, once they say it's okay, then unless there's an error, there's nothing to be put, no blame to be put on any individual.
Yes, so I agree that this is actually the case, or as far as they have come along so far, this is the case. So when it comes down to it, this is now we ascribe our criteria by which we're prepared to hand over this responsibility to the computer, accepting that it's been programmed adequately, and yeah, any error is a fault.
Uh-huh.
For example, did you know a single bit can be taken out by a high energy particle at any time, anywhere? It's a single event. You can't trace it, and
Mm-hmm.
it can completely fuck your computer.
Hey,
If that happened, yeah, that may happen.
then you would have to hope that the person who programmed the goddamn car, once there's a once there's a self-diagnostic that's happening, or if such things were to occur, there would need to be a self-diagnostics that would shut down the car immediately. Because if if they don't anticipate this shit, then they would still be at fault for this.
It could happen 2 milliseconds into the sequence of the accident, and the computer completely shuts down.
Then they aren't at fault. Okay,
So
you have to understand. Okay,
this
look.
way, we
Huh?
can shut this car down and hand control back to you at any time. Um, yeah. So yeah, with the accepting the responsibility is accepting the criteria under which we ascribe law and responsibility, which is a slippery answer. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I was suggesting that you have maybe failed to add into one of your criteria. Yeah, that was some kind of a decision process.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been sent back to the 1960s again on my telephones.
Yes.